Hi everyone, and welcome to the 2024 SGDA Summit Art Panel. I'm Jules, and I'm an event coordinator here at SGDA, and I'll be moderating today's panel. We have a very exciting panel for you today discussing art within the gaming industry, what that entails, and advice and wisdom for those looking to enter into the industry. If you have any questions, please feel free to enter them into the chat. We'll try to answer them. But now I would like to introduce the panelists for today. I'll go ahead and start off with Garrett.
Hi, everyone. My name's Garrett Kaida. I'm primarily an educator. I've been teaching for over 10 years. I teach at private schools, the local university, and a community college. And then I also do freelance work as a concept artist. So I've worked on commercials, a couple video games, and then mostly board and card games would be my main line of work.
And my name is Sean Kang. I'm a currently freelance 3D artist. I mostly focus on environments. But recently, my job kind of naturally led me into a lot of character and slash prop work. So yeah. Yeah, that's about it.
I am Echo. I'm an associate IM artist from 1047 Game Studio, and I'm now based in Los Angeles. So I primarily I'm actually part of the environment art team, but I primarily working on the organic assets in the game, like terrain, like rocks and vegetation. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, I wanted to go kind of kick it off with the first question is, how did you guys end up working in the game industry? Was it something you always wanted to pursue, or was it something you kind of like stumbled into?
For my part, I was always interested in concept art, at least when I started shifting over into that field. And games are always pretty cool because of the subject matter. But the way that I ended up working for a game studio was actually a mutual friend from 10 years ago in community college. Just hit me up one day and they needed a concept artists to design a lot of their stuff. And that was kind of my foot in the door there. So always keep in touch with people. Could be a decade later that you get a job offer from someone that you met from school long ago.
For me, it was in my first pick because I wasn't interested in games, pretty much not at all. But I was pursuing a career of being part of the film industry. And I actually majored in film production during my undergrad, and I was taking a lot of production classes. And then I loved the whole process, but it was very exhausting because film production involves a lot of heavy gears. So carrying all those around and taking hours to shoot anything out there. But then I was walking by this newly finished gaming lab in my undergrad school. I saw a guy sitting on a chair and doing all the stuff like setting up lights, even setting up the sun and clouds on a one chair. And it kind of struck me like, oh, I want to do that. So that's how I got into the game. So that's why I kind of learning still about gaming world. So yeah, that's how I kind of got involved into the industry in the first place.
So for me, I think it was a really long journey and with a lot of back and forth because my love for like art and painting actually started when I was a child. But I never thought I would pursue it as my career until like college, I think. And then my undergraduate major is actually finance. So it's not like art related at all, but I try to take interactive media arts as my minor. And during my classes for that minor, I started like working on some like past projects, like some mini game demo things, and I feel like it's really interesting. And I actually started doing something like 2D at the beginning because I started learning like painting, digital painting, like in Photoshop, and I started like also looking for an internship at a game company because I tried to like learn more about the industry. And I did, and my first internship was actually a game designer. It's also not art related, but it was a fun experience for me, and I feel like game industry is very interesting. So I want to break into the industry, and I try to apply for a graduate program to help me do that. So that's why I came to my graduate school, and I started finally taking like game design as my major. But I was still very unsure about what specifically role I want to take. But in my graduate program, I get some knowledge about environment art. And I feel like that's what I want to do, like finally. And after I graduated from my graduate program, I found my first 3D artist internship. That's how I started my career.
Awesome. Kind of like expanding on that topic of like kind of like the early career and stuff, specifically for each of your roles, because we do have like a wide variety here on the panel for like disciplines within art. How did you come to your specific like art like focus and art niche?
I think I was drawn to concept art because even like when I was younger, anytime I would doodle or something, it was always creating some sort of universe or world. Like I'm going to date myself here, but before Pokemon came out, I had like tons and tons of like lined paper pages filled up with these like little elemental creatures that were basically Pokemon before I knew what those were. So I think that process of just like creating something from a concept or thinking through like an idea of like how would this work in this type of world or environment, that always excited me from a young age. So concept art was a pretty natural fit for that because you're the one who's spitballing all the ideas and coming up with all of the quick concepts for that.
For me, environment kind of naturally stuck to me when I initially wanted to start working at the game industry. But there was a moment when I struggle to choose between the tech art and the environment art because like I've seen many of my friends who pursue in tech art getting landing on the internship faster and landing on the full-time job faster. So I had this struggle whether I should go like switch my gear to the tech art, and I've sat down with like industry veteran whenever I have some time, and then I asked them the question about deciding these two, struggling between these two paths, and then uh, surprisingly, I asked 10 people, and exactly half of them said go for the environment, and half of them said go for the tech art, then switch over to environment once you breach into the industry initially. So that point, I kind of asked myself, like, what option would I least regret in next 5 years later? So I picked the environment. So far, so good. So that's how I kind of picked the environment specifically in the first place.
For me, as I mentioned before, before my graduate program, I was purely a 2D artist, and so I think my graduate school is the like most important time point for me to transition from 2D to 3D, because I had a class at my school and we try to it's like a game jam class, and every like you are like all students are were divided into like groups, and you need to make a game demo like within 2 weeks. um so you can choose your role, and I choose to be artist, and I realized that 3D art is way more useful for that class specifically because you need to make game ready assets to help your team like produce something within that very short time period. So I started learning 3D from that time from that class, and I feel like I'm very interested in doing 3D things, even more than 2D. So that's how I started like considering my career as a 3D artist. And I think for environment art specifically, that's because when I like in the second year of my graduate school, I started looking for, like full-time job. And when you prepare for your portfolio, it's always necessary that you narrow down to a very specific role, especially because I am to like, joining like AAA game projects. And then they have very detailed like roles in the game studios, like even not environment artists, even like vegetation artists or something. So it's always better to have a like very specific portfolio. So I started thinking about like what specific role I want to like take. So I decided to do environment art, and I started to I think I have a like focus on like organic assets, but it's not very intentional. It's kind of like naturally because I was doing some personal projects, and I was more interested in something like environment, like forest or something. So I naturally like made a lot of organic assets. So that's helped me like land on the biome artist.
Awesome. So now kind of jumping into the actual like the nitty-gritty of like the actual process of itself and talking about like working on projects. Does your approach to art change depending on what game or like what genre of game that you're working on?
Yeah, I would say for the stuff that I've done, style's obviously one of the biggest things. So you kind of need to get that nailed down with the team you're working with, what type of style you want. But in terms of tools and other stuff, I was chatting with Sean just a little bit before we started. So when I got like that first job and it was a VR project, for that one, I was like, well, I haven't done much in VR. I haven't like played many VR games. So for that, it's like I bought a headset, bought a bunch of the games that would be in the same genre I was working in just to get a feel for like what a VR title was going to offer that a regular flat screen title wouldn't. And then there's a ton of cool VR tools for building stuff as well. So that was, I'd say, a really cool technical change, just getting to work with some of the VR tools out there for that particular project.
For me, most of the project that I worked on are on VR platforms. So I think it doesn't really influence me in terms of like, the style of our art, but it's more like a technical approach to the art when I'm making assets. Because in traditional PC platforms, you don't get much of a like aliasing or some weird things happen when you actually put on the headset and look at your asset in VR. So just need adds making arts for the VR project, just add extra layer for artists to actually check their asset in the headset. So they're very like some nitty-gritty things that like VR is still kind of bad at rendering certain as in a certain asset. So I think those approaches definitely kind of influenced me in a way that how I make arts.
Yeah, I think my approach to art also like doesn't change a lot because I feel like the 3D workflow for especially like realistic style like PC games are kind of like fixed. Like it's a very mature workflow for everything, like for all software and for the whole workflow. So I learned that, and I did my like personal projects and my portfolio like basically following that workflows. And I'm lucky that I found a job basically it's realistic style like PC games. So my workflow just applied for that like smoothly. So I didn't like change my approach a lot, I think. I just learn new things, like learn new software and learn new like tips during my work.
All right. Kind of like on that note, would you guys think for like when someone's applying for a job and like preparing their portfolio, should you like prepare your portfolio per like the job you're going for, or should you look for things that are like fit your style, or should you change your style to fit a position?
Yeah, I've got two pieces of advice for that. One is that you should make work that you enjoy doing because you're going to get hired to do that work. And if you hate it, you're going to be paid to do work that you hate for 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it doesn't really benefit you to do stuff that you really don't like because you're just going to make yourself miserable. And you could make money other ways that aren't as misery inducing. And then in terms of like, should you shoot for a target style? These days, I think that's a little tougher to answer. Like Like previously, it'd be like, you want to work at Blizzard, you have to have a Blizzard style. But the artist that they hired for all of the Overwatch characters, that was completely non-Blizzard style because they intentionally wanted to differentiate from what they had done before. So companies are always looking for ways to diversify, to make something new, for them to stand out. So you want to make stuff that A, you care about, and B, it does help if your work somewhat differentiates you from all the other artwork out there. But you really can't guarantee on that because you don't know what the company's necessarily looking for their upcoming projects. You just know what they've done in the past there. But maybe if you have more to add to that, Sean.
No, I think you very well summed it up everything I wanted to say. Definitely, I would say definitely stick to what you enjoy making, and then stick to a style that you're comfortable with. But there's no wrong answer of trying out new style and learning new style, and maybe you find it more suitable for yourself. But I would say it's not really what to make. I think how you like it's for me is all about how you present it professionally in your portfolios. What I found very helpful was just looking through our station every morning and just looking a ton of different like personal projects out there in the art station and just figure out like the best way to present your work and in a very concise and organized way. I think there's so that makes it recruiters' jobs a lot easier, and then it just makes you stand out among the other peers because you actually like they can see your thought process through that presentations.
Yeah, I totally agree with what the other two artists shared before. But I can add a little bit more like perspective from my own experience, like when I was looking for a job last year. So because I just graduated and I didn't have any internship, like art related internship during that time, so I was so, desperate to secure a position. So what I did, like at the beginning, is like I applied for any like art related job I could find, no matter like it's 2D or it's 3D or it's stylized or it's realistic art style. I just applied for everything. But it turned out that the studio that finally like reached out to me and give me interviews are basically the job and the studio like matched my portfolio. So I think the portfolio is really important for opportunities that available for you. And like the studio it's kind of like a mutual like selection process because the studio want to see like what it can do from your portfolio and what you want to do like from your portfolio. So I think you need to like consider more about that before you apply for a job instead of just trying everything. Like it's kind of like a waste of time. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys. The next question I kind of wanted to go into was kind of like on the topic of like the kind of like what type of work we want to get into as game developers, in the sense like there's many forms of like a job can take. So, and we have a lot of experience here on this panel working in studio versus freelance. So whether you can speak on both experiences or you're working on one specifically, can you kind of like talk about your experience with working in studio versus freelance?
Sure. I don't have any video game studio experience. That's all been freelance, but I did work in studio for some other projects that weren't video game related. And when I was doing graphic design, I was in studio. So I'm assuming it's somewhat similar corporate structure to that. I think the biggest thing I missed from being in a studio was you have collaborators, you have other employees around you that you can bounce ideas off of, that you can just have like a conversation with about, a movie or a show, versus freelance can be very isolating. It's great if you're a super introverted person because, you don't want to have those awkward conversations anyways. But if you're an extrovert, freelance can take a toll on you that way. And then the other thing would be studio projects, in my experience, tend to have longer uptimes. So if you're in a studio, your project's probably going to be lasting longer than if you have a freelance contract. Your freelance contract may go for a month or two. So if you also like variety, sometimes freelance is a little better for that. Because if it's a project that you're not super excited about, then it's only going to be done in the next 2 or 3 months. Versus if you're in studio and you don't like that project, you may be stuck there for the next year and a half working on the same IP over and over again, day in and day out. So there's trade-offs to both, but yeah, I would kind of think about that. Like, what's your personality type? And then how much variety do you like? Do you like working on a lot of quick different projects, or do you like working on one project and really perfecting it and honing it?
So in my case, I worked in the studio as a full-time artist for about 3.5 years, and I just recently switched over to be a freelancer just about a year ago. I think in my situation, I'm kind of in a unique circumstance where my work in freelance, also the work that I was doing in studio, there aren't much of a difference. I know that like Garrett just described, like freelancer artists usually are given very specific tasks with the very targeted like spec you need to meet with your assets and like concept art. Um, but in my case, I was more involved in the overall production. I get to do a lot of exploration. So in my case, it was the job itself is not so much difference between. I think this is because of kind of unique situation that I'm in. The but the biggest difference when that I felt when I switched over to freelance was the tools you need to know per contract, because like some studio use different workflow than the studio you worked previously. So the previous studio that I worked for used Maya for as a like a primary modeling kit, but the studio that I worked for as a freelancer is using Blender. So I had to actually uh, learn Blender within like 2 months to able to do my job. So that's something that you need to kind of be aware of when you become a freelancer. The studio will have different demands on you and different workflow, so you have to be very agile and then very open to new changes. I would say just accept it is what it is and trying to fit yourself into that, and then trying to make the art best within those circumstances.
Yeah, for me, I never worked as a freelancer or self-employed artist before, except academic projects. And I've been a full-time artist in a game studio for about, I think, 9 to 10 months now. And I think being an artist in a game studio is like, yeah, you are only you're only responsible for very small parts of the very big projects, and you like just a lot of communication like is going on every day, and you are welcome to give feedback to other artists and other like teams, like even they are working on a different map or something, but you're always welcome to share your thoughts and share feedback. And also a good thing for me, like as an associate artist, it's also great to like, because there are a lot of like senior artists around you, and you can always reach out to them to ask questions and to ask feedback, because feedback is really important. So that's my experience.
Awesome. Yeah, that's like very insightful. Yeah. Next question I kind of want to go into is like your like with your practices, what kind of impact or goal do you try to reach with your art?
Yeah, I'm probably gonna have a terrible answer for this one because I don't think about that at all. I like to I like to make I don't know, pretty paintings or cool looking drawings, but it's very surface level. I do not have a lot of like deep uh conceptual stuff behind the work I do, or like try and tie the work to anything bigger really. So yeah,
Um,
kind of,
Let me
unless there's the different way you were thinking of
yeah,
that,
maybe
Jules.
maybe I can rephrase this question to like kind of like since we're all since everyone here is working in working with like collaborating with like a studio or like with
Mhm.
freelance and company, maybe we can kind of like reframe this question is how do you when working with a studio with an already like designated IP, how do you put kind of like put in your like own personal touch into it?
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that I get what you're saying now. I thought you were talking about like global impact, or yeah, like more emotional impact on an individual. Yeah, for like putting your own kind of spin on things, I think I always get the most excited or like happy if if I'm able to add something to the vision that the either the art director or if I'm like working and helping assisting another artist with their project, if I'm able to add something that they like, that they didn't think of, that they didn't spot ahead of time, and it wasn't like in the prompt that they literally told me what to do, I think that's what excites me the most, because then it's like the that creative gamble of like, ooh, maybe they're thinking this, maybe this would be a cool way to take the direction of this project. Like you get the payoff from it, and then it it just adds to the whole team and the whole game. So I think that's it for me, being able to add something that wasn't directly requested.
Uh, for me, I will just go off how I understood the question. For me is my goal or slash impact that I want to do with my art. It would be, it's not something, like an emotional impact or any like, make the world a better place or anything like that. But it's more like uh I try as an artist, I try to always make art that supports the game or core game mechanics and game design pillars. So I think artists, 3D artists in games are kind of in a unique job because you're an artist who wants to create beautiful things as an artist, but since kind of this process naturally isolate yourself from the others, but in the game studio you're out to collaborate with others. So I think I seen sometimes also I myself are kind of the actually did few times like I get trying to be very protective about my art process and then not allowing designers chime in and give feedback and like pushing back the main design notes from the designers. So I've done several times and it just slows down the entire process and then it's bad for the team, and end of the day like the players will just notice how the bad game is. So I always try to like be open to the feedback and then just make the art that supports the all the design pillars, and then the artistic stuff, my own desire to add cool art into the existing one. It kind of comes next after support hitting all those marks for the design pillars.
Yeah, as an entry-level artist, I think for me, I consider more like my primary goal is more about personal growth for like an artist, like an entry-level artist. I, of course, I want to like contribute more to my project, but I kind of like grab all opportunities I can have to learn more and try to like take more responsibilities like within my ability. So I try to every time I feel it's very satisfying, like every time I learn something new from other artists and I added some like new assets into the game map or something, that all of these things just make me feel really happy and really excited every day. So I am not like, yeah, I didn't consider a lot about like how I'm gonna affect the whole game projects. I focus more like during this current stage, I kind of like focus more on my own personal growth. Yeah.
Awesome. Next question I want to ask was kind of like, we're right now in the industry, like especially right now for artists and gaming industry as a whole, we're facing a lot of challenges, a lot of news, a lot of like worrying news. And I wanted to ask about kind of like some of the challenges you've faced, either like finding job, finding new work, or finding new projects to hop on, or kind of like just comment on like those like the difficulties right now.
Sure, sure. I think, like you were saying, Jules, like video game industry has always been pretty volatile. A lot of video game contracts, when you do get a job, it's like you get a job for 6 months and then you're fired after that, and then you're trying to find a new job. So to provide a little bit of like advice for the students watching this or the people watching this, I think it's very important to keep in contact, even if it's just like sending an email or saying hi to someone that you've worked with, because the people you work with do become your network, and the more places you go, the more people you know. So that just helps future proof your career, because then if they get hired and they need an artist that you fulfill that role, they're probably going to think of you first. They're going to go, oh, I liked working with that person. Oh, they, you know what? They just messaged me the other week. They were asking how I was doing. Let's see if we can get them a job. So it is a really volatile industry. And to counteract that, you definitely want to be pretty cordial with everyone. And then it helps to, just keep in touch, even if it's just an email or saying hi every now and then. And then on a more like personal, like individual artist level, I think some of the challenges that I didn't expect, there's a lot that, it's out there. It's like, oh, it's demanding work. You got to have, high skill, you got to turn stuff in on time. But the stuff I didn't expect was when the technical stuff stopped becoming a problem. I think especially as a student, you worry about just like, am I good enough? Is my work professional yet? Can it get a job? But once you get the job, it's like your work is there. And then it just becomes a problem of, at least for concept artists, becomes a problem of, well, what about your ideas? It's like you're constantly having to churn out new ideas. So I started really hitting a wall creatively, like, oh my gosh, all of this stuff is so derivative. It's in every single one of these other games. How can I create something original that also fits the prompt? And then you're having to do that as your daily job over and over and over again. So I think both are important. It's important to have technical skills, but then I also wouldn't ignore the idea generation part of it. Like leave some time for yourself to practice being creative and coming up with things that are novel, because that becomes just as important. Once you get the job, that's just as important as being able to make the asset or come up with the concept for whatever the project has.
Um, plus one on everything what Garrett just said. Don't have much to add on top of that. But I think what I can offer from my unique perspective would be unique challenges that I face as a international employee. The visa definitely comes in your way very often. And I'm the sort of a victim of that as well. I had to leave my studio because of my visa. But I would say that is a big challenge. But also, I would say just take that as another great opportunity for you to explore and learn new things. So, because of my visa didn't go through, I became this digital nomad and traveling different countries for about like 6 months now. So I think as an environment, that's a great opportunity for me to actually embed myself into the different type of environment around the world. So I would say just, whatever challenge you face, use it against, like not against you, but for you. So, just be creative. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, finding a job as a game artist, especially when you're new to the industry and you require like visa sponsorship, is like very difficult for students like after they graduated. So I think my suggestion is that first of all, I think internship experience is actually more like important than I thought before, because when you had an internship before, you can provide like uh, people like when you need reference check for your full-time job, and also like the studio when they look for full-time artist, even if it's entry-level artist, they still expect you have some professional experience before. So for me, after I graduated, I didn't have any previous internship, so I actually applied for internship and full-time job at the same time, to like try to like secure a job. And I actually started the internship first after I graduated, and that internship helped me a lot when I applied for my full-time job. So I think internship is very important. If you had the opportunity to apply for internship as a student, it will be very helpful. And also, I agree, like reaching out to more people like on LinkedIn is also very helpful, because you can always like message like people from the studio you want to work on, and you can always message them and send your portfolio to them, and just try to expose your portfolio to like as many as artists. And I think most people they're gonna reply to you like very kindly, and they are very helpful and very supportive. And that's also how actually I landed on my full-time job, because I messaged my hiring manager at that time. I didn't know he was the hiring manager actually, but but he just replied to me and told me that his team is looking for artists and he really liked my portfolio. So that's how I got my interview for that company. So it's very helpful.
Awesome. So this next segment, I kind of want to go more onto the kind of like advice. It's like the advice segment, and like career building. But first question I want to ask is, what tools or experience have you found beneficial to the type of art that you do?
Before I answer that one, just real quick to echo what Aiko was saying there. Yeah, the worst thing they're going to say is nothing. Like
Yeah.
if they say no, it's even better because you've got an answer. You're like, okay, I don't have to worry about this studio. They told me no. It's like the worst thing you're going to get is no response whatsoever. So don't be afraid to reach out to people. That was really good advice. But for the tools, the things that I found beneficial, there's obviously like whatever staples that you're going to have in your industry. But for me, that 3D project, or not 3D, the VR project that I worked on, I am terrible when it comes to any type of 3D modeling. I hate the interface. It's clunky. I feel like a caveman trying to like type a letter. So the fact that VR has a lot of gesture controls and programs like Gravity Sketch, which are very lightweight 3D programs, it opened up a ton of opportunities just in my own work to create way more complex environments in a fraction of the time compared to if I had to use like Blender or like SketchUp and have to try and like learn all of those things by hand. So at least for concept art, Gravity Sketch and VR sculpting tools have been a huge benefit to me.
For me, the I think basically just pick the one. As a student, I think you should definitely pick a one 3D application to start learning, and just stick to that until you kind of sort of get yourself comfortable with using the tool generally. I think besides like actual tools, the things that are helping me a lot in my career was I go on our station every day, and then I try to look at others' work, like 10 or 20 of arts every day. And then it kind of like helps me a lot to train my eyes to see what's fascinating to my eyes, and trying to ask why that is. So that practice has been very helpful for me. So I hope that also help others as well.
Yeah, for me, I think for environment artists, tech knowledge is like very, very important. Because when I was a student, I was thinking I want to be a pure artist. I don't want to learn anything about like tech because I tried some coding class and I was so terrible at that. So I didn't like I try to avoid anything about like tech art or anything that like programming. But after I worked in the studio, though I did a lot of like sculpting thing and a lot of like art thing, I still feel like technology is very important because um you can't avoid like you reading like blueprints in Unreal Engine or something like that because even though you don't need to like maybe set up the original material for the project, but you still need to use it and you need to understand how the other like maybe tech artists like set up material. So I think it's very helpful if you can read them and if you can like understand the logic behind the material and you can give some contributions or like some suggestions for that. And also, when I apply for environment artist job, I also feel like learning something about like some procedural tools like Houdini is also very helpful because at least for my studio, we are trying to do the terrain and also some tools with Houdini. So you need to work very closely with the tech artist who is using Houdini and try to make tools. So it's very helpful if you have some tech knowledge about this software.
Awesome. Kind of like picking back on this idea of like this like some essentials like tools. I kind of want to go into like essential skills per discipline. So for example, like if for someone who's trying to get into like a specific niche, like environment artist, what do you think like for your niche are the specific skills or not specific essential skills that we need to get hired?
Yeah, I'll speak for like pre-production 2D concept art side of things. I think one of the essential skills there is that you need to bring lots of options, and you need to be very flexible when you are told no multiple times, because that can get a little frustrating if you're not quite getting what the art director is asking of you, and you've submitted like multiple rounds of a project, and every time they just keep saying no. You want to make sure that you're not taking that personally, that they're not like, they're not directing that rejection to you. They're just letting you know that like this asset or this character, this environment is just not quite there yet. So yeah, you need to be flexible, patient, and good communication is also really helpful, because that's a lot of your job too, at least in concept art. It's just trying to puzzle out what are they imagining in their mind, and how can I use my skills to try and replicate that so that the entire team can see what's in the art director's mind or the game creator's mind.
I think for me as an environment artist, it will be very beneficial and to get a job if you know a lot of like nitty-gritty technical stuff regarding how to like optimizing your asset in for the environment, like trim sheet workflow or ultimate trim sheet, like vertex shader, general understanding of how the lighting resource is allocated within your scene, like and like if there's any like cool trick you actually kind of learn and like learn from few different things, and you kind of combine it all into different kind of your own unique way to optimize your environment workflow. I think that will be also very cool to show to the recruiter, also very beneficial for the studio. Yeah.
Yeah, so Sean has mentioned about environment artists, so I will add a little bit about like specifically biome artists, because I basically don't work on any hard surface things. I only work on organic assets. So for me, my primary tools are ZBrush and Substance Painter. So basically, all assets I sculpted them in ZBrush. The ZBrush skill is very important for being a biome artist, and also yeah, optimization is very important because the sculpting things usually have a lot of polygons. So it's very important to optimize them and do everything clean. And when you import anything into the engine, you need to make sure the LODs and the collisions are all set up very correctly, because for my company, we do the playtest every week. So everything you submitted to the level will affect the playtest. So you need to make sure everything work in terms of gameplay. So
Awesome. We're reaching the close to the end of the panel, so only a couple more questions left. But next question I kind of wanted to do is kind of like more on like the workplace setting. Um, it's no secret that only a couple of years ago we just came out of like a really big pandemic, and that changed kind of like the job workspace. So I wanted to see how your experiences working remotely, and how has that changed kind of like your approach to art, if it did.
Yeah, I think I already worked mostly freelance anyway, so remote work's pretty much the same as freelance work in that regard. But just as a note on that, I think the most important part, it is the communication, especially if you're not having phone calls or video meetings. Most of like the work that I do, it comes through an email. And if you don't understand something, you definitely want to email them back right away and get clarification, because you don't want to waste their time and their money by like interpreting something wrong and then spending the next day or 2 days, however long they give you, to create something only for them to go like, oh, we meant this. And you're like, great, well now I've just wasted everyone's time here. And you feel kind of bad as an artist. So definitely like make sure you are very clear on what it is that you want to do, and don't be afraid to to correspond more with whoever you're working with, just so that you know what's expected of you and what you're supposed to be turning in.
Yeah, I would also say communication might be the biggest change, the influence because of the remote work. I would say in the like typical like, in-person studio setup, like you can like doing your work, and then you can just pop your desk like chair to next to the senior artist and just ask them question, let showing your monitor. But that's not the case in the remote setting. So I would say be aware of the milestone. You need to stop your work and then communicate with your team, then get the feedback and then get the initial adjustment whenever it is easy to do. Then moving on to the next milestone. So be aware of your, you know, uh, when to stop your work and then ask feedback, and then be open to communication. I think is the key.
Yeah, for me, I didn't work during the COVID, but my current studio is a fully remote studio, and we hire people like globally. So a lot of my team members are actually in Europe. So sometimes the meeting can be a little bit tricky. So the times is probably a little bit early or late. But I think a good producer is very important to, coordinate everything. But as an artist, I don't think it affects my approach to art a lot because my company they try to avoid a lot of extra meetings. So I still have a lot of like a big chunk of time every day to focus on my artwork. And I think if you don't like you are like you feel like you're disturbed a lot by like other people's message or like meetings, I think it's you always have the freedom to set up some focus time on your calendar or something to avoid that, because I think focusing on like sculpting or something as an artist is very important. Yeah.
Awesome. And I think we only have time for one more question, but the last question I wanted to ask is, what advice would you have for art students looking to work in games right now?
If one of you two wants to go first, I'm going to have to think about this one for a little bit there. So feel free to jump in if you two have something right at the tip of your mind here.
I don't this itself, and then just trying to be open to any new unexpected opportunity, but don't get discouraged by not landing on a job in the first place, because you never know, and everything is very in chaos right now. So just try to enjoy the process itself, and then once you know in that phase long enough, you will definitely get a job. Yeah.
Yeah, I was a student and I was preparing for my portfolio like just last year, so I'm probably the closest one to the student year. Yeah, so I would suggest that just build your portfolio as early as possible and just create work even if you feel it's not perfect. Just start it and just go back to polish it later. It's always helpful to just start. I think I my one of my like one of the things I feel is very helpful is that because we a lot of artists they are like self-teaching, so we learn from like online tutorials, like learn from YouTube channels, and I feel like as like after you think you are like quite familiar with a 3D like software like Blender or Maya, and when you started looking at some more advanced tutorials, you never just follow the tutorials like 100%, never copy the thing they do in the tutorial. Always come up with something like even just a little bit like of your original ideas, like creative ideas, just change the thing a little bit. So that work can be put into your portfolio as something different. It's not just a copy of the tutorial. I think that's also very helpful for me.
Okay, I thought of something. Thank you, Sean and Eiko, for stalling for me, giving me some more time here. I think something that's good to keep in mind, and this was something that like I kind of learned after school, was don't shun a job that isn't perfect. Something that you think is like, well, that's not what I want to do. It's like that's not where I want to end up, because you don't know where that's going to take you and what doors that's going to open for you. I have a student who works at Riot now. His first job was for an architecture company. I had a friend in school who works at Disney Feature Animation now. His first job was at a very tiny little animation studio, and it wasn't a great initial starting experience, but that's what got him there. That's what got him the job at Disney. That's what got my student the job at Riot. And there's definitely been things that I've done, projects that I've worked on, where I was just like, you know what, this is kind of a dumb project. I don't really like the concept, or maybe the pay isn't that great, but every little thing starts slowly building up on itself. And like Aiko was saying, experience is really important. So if you don't get that dream job right away, don't dismiss other opportunities just because you're just like, oh, this isn't something that, is my ultimate goal. It's like you're gonna have to take multiple steps to get there. And you may even find that your ultimate goal changes along the way. You may discover something that you're just like, oh wow, it's like I never knew this existed, but I love it. So now I'm gonna switch to become this type of artist and focus on that.
Yeah, I want to add a little bit to that
Mhm.
because that's exactly how my like journey leads to my current. Yeah, because I did my internship as the game designer before, and after my undergraduate program, I actually took a gap year between my before my graduate program. I actually worked as a narrative designer at a game company, and those two experiences basically let me realize that I actually want to do art. I don't want to do anything else. So that's why I was determined to be an artist in my graduate school. And after that, I didn't land on a game artist job like after I graduated. So as I said before, I started looking for internship, and my first internship was a 3D artist, but it was at a advertising agency. So it's also not game, but it's related to it because the agency like collaborated with some game studios. So I also got a chance to work with them and saw their like in-game assets and even open their game projects to learn from it. So I think all of this experience really, build on my skills and my experience and help me land on my dream job, like finally. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And with that, that ends the art panel. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming by. It was a very informative talk and very grateful for all the advice you have. But yeah, and everyone in chat, thank you for coming in. Up next, we have our student showcase slot C at 4 p.m. So make sure to tune into that. Other than that, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.